Can you check for me? Okay, thanks, Katie.
Start our ceremony with this, because we're taught in the Talmud that when a loved one dies, we can tear our clothes, rip our clothes. We're taught that the tear that we experience is really an internal tear, a tear in our hearts, and it's not something that we ever completely mend. And so the tear that we do physically on our garment represents that inner tear. So Dennis is wearing a ribbon, which is on the left-hand side over his heart to symbolize this. And there's a blessing that is traditionally said as the tear is made. So Dennis, if you can stand up. Then if you can repeat after me.
Okay.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Baruch atah Adonai.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Eloheinu melech haolam.
Dayan ha'emes.
Bayan ha'emes.
Dayan.
Bayan ha'emes.
Amen. And now if you can just tear up on the ribbon with this. Adonai natah, Adonai latah, Shem Adonai mevorach. We say this blessing over truth. And the way I like to think about this is that our loved ones, Beverly in particular, lived a life of her own truth. And even though she is not with us physically in this world anymore, the truth that she lived by is something that does not disappear. The truth that she lived by is something that remains with us for many, many years to come. And so we're reminded of that as we make this tear, reminding us that we hold that truth within our hearts. In the words of Ecclesiastes, there's a season set for everything, a time for every experience under heaven, a time for dancing and a time for wailing, a time for birthing and a time for dying, a time for speaking and a time for silence, a time for seeking and a time for losing. We're here today to remember Beverly Faye Mendelsberg, who lived a long life, a life that was filled with loving relationships and a life that was filled with meaningful, deep connections. As we remember her today, we will weave her life together with the words of our sacred tradition, Psalms that our rabbis have used for generations and generations, reminding us that we are all interconnected. And just as we lay her body into the earth today, her soul, her spirit, her substance remains with us. Shemayim va'aretz ezri me'im Adonai oseh Shemayim va'aretz. The psalmist speaks about the way that when we are longing, when we are missing, when we are sad, we have this capacity to look into nature, and particularly to look at the harim, the mountains, and be reminded of the vastness of the universe and the importance of the connections that we have on earth. And for Beverly, she spent most of her life here in Denver, where it's not hard to look up into those mountains, right? She had a mountain house where she was able to appreciate what it meant to have those mountains that surround us. Kind, considerate, loving, resilient, bubbly, thoughtful, generous, positive, strong, independent, competent, accepting. Beverly Mendelsberg was born on June 25th, 1928 in California. She had a younger brother who suffered from polio, and she shared memories of visiting him in the hospital as a child. The truth is that during Beverly's adulthood, she actually didn't speak much about her childhood. And Barb, you realized this and you decided that it might be interesting to give her a notebook where she could jot down her memories and then they would be there for safekeeping since she wasn't talking about it so much. And she actually gave her that notebook and she filled it. She wrote a lot. However, the notebook is in her apartment. And Dennis and Barbara didn't have access to that for this funeral. But I share that with you because a funeral is only one moment in time to eulogize and to speak about our loved ones. This is not the only time. And you will have many moments in the years to come to speak and to share her stories. And so when you get and have access to that notebook, those stories will be there for you to discover and for you to share at family meals, at dinner tables, at family gatherings, as you continue to remember her. Beverly loved art, and after high school, she went to a bit of art school. But then something happened that changed her life. She met Sam, who became the love of her life when she was visiting here, taking a trip from California to Denver. He was a merchant marine. They were introduced and they fell in love quickly. When Beverly returned to California, Sam reached out and asked her to marry him. They got married in her home in California, but then they left and came here to his home in Denver and settled here. They bought a house on South Polly Street, and that house became a home. It became a space where they would raise their two sons, Dennis and Mark, where they would entertain their beloved grandchildren, where they would host many family gatherings in the backyard, and where they would share really important time with friends. During most of your childhood, Dennis, mom there was a homemaker. Hold on one second. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna go back. Okay, sorry. Sam and Beverly also owned a condo, and that condo was in Dillon. And one of their pastimes that they loved, that they enjoyed so much, was being on the water, going fishing, and just spending time with their friends at this special condo that they had. Beverly was very social, and she adored people. She always had friends surrounding her and her family. Many of the people who are here today were her greatest loves. Dennis, you remember how your mother was kind and thoughtful, always supporting you and always advising you as a child and into adulthood. During most of your childhood, Dennis, she was a homemaker. She would talk about how she would have the kids running around and playing with their friends outside, and she would be inside the home ironing and cooking. She was a great cook and especially a great baker, specializing in rugula, strudel, and mandel bread. She was also an avid knitter, always working on a sweater to give one of you. I'm imagining that many of her children and grandchildren and relatives have pieces that she made for you, especially from her heart. These were some of the ways that she showed her love by creating and by sharing these talents for baking and knitting and helping others. When Dennis and Mark were teenagers, Beverly went to work as a medical assistant. It occurred to me that this actually seems like the perfect job for a person who loved so much to help people, for a person who loved to make people feel comfortable and make people feel welcome, for a person who loved to hold people's hands. That's what you want from your medical assistant, right? When Dennis and Barb began dating, Beverly was immediately welcoming. In fact, when they began dating, Beverly heard that Barbara was sick, and she immediately brought her chicken soup. When Dennis and Barb got engaged, they had a party, and Beverly took Barb by the hand and walked her around the entire party, introducing her to people, never letting go of her hand. This special relationship was maintained throughout Beverly's life. Beverly and Barbara spoke at least once every day. They both knew this mother-daughter-in-law relationship was really profoundly unique and something that they held as very special in their hearts. In these later years, the thing that was most difficult for Beverly was that she couldn't get up and help when she was at Dennis and Barbara's house or anybody else's house. She found her calling in this world by showing love and giving love, and by being responsive to the needs of others and being proactive in that way as well. She always wanted to be helping. And so not being able to be productive, to give, that was hard for her. Beverly's love for her family was felt and seen through her incredible relationships with her grandchildren, Audrey, Ryan, Shayna, and your beloved spouses, and also through her relationship with her great-grandchildren, Jacob, Adam, and Garrett. When her grandchildren were growing up, Beverly lived close by, and so she was able to help out, and she was able to really be a part of your lives, a presence in your lives in a regular basis, really owning and maintaining and creating what it meant to be Nana. She used to laugh when she would tell stories about going grocery shopping and taking all 3 grandchildren with her and putting them all in the shopping carts. Beverly was very active in Hadassah. She held positions on the board, and she went to study sessions through Hadassah right up until COVID started. She also loved to play mahjong. So why did she like to do these things? So she liked the values of Hadassah, and clearly she valued the idea of learning, going to these study sessions. But the thing that was most important to her, the thing she really got from these, was socializing. It was being with people, it was being with friends, it was connecting. Beverly was an encouraging and supporting presence. Barb, when you were diagnosed with cancer, she was your cheerleader. When Beverly recently broke her foot, she moved in with Dennis and Barb for 6 weeks. But she felt that it was important that she be able to move out and be back on her own before Barb started her treatment. Beverly was also resilient, and it's really important to speak to this. She had real struggles in her life. Her soulmate, Sam, died 33 years ago when she was just 60. And then her beloved son, Mark, died. Both of these losses were deeply painful, but Beverly didn't let it stop her. She moved forward and she continued to embrace life with all of its messiness and continue to create and give love. In fact, when Sam died, she harnessed her resilience and strength, and she took over his carpet business, which he had been running out of the home, and she began to run it and continued to run it until she retired. So yesterday, Beverly left this world. The interesting thing is that yesterday was a day that she was looking so forward to. Why was she looking forward to it? Because it was a special day. It was Barbara and Dennis's anniversary, and she wanted to celebrate. She wanted to feel the joy that she felt from those she loved. Again, it was people, it was these connections that were so central to her. She spoke to both of them, as well as to all of her grandchildren yesterday. And then she swiftly left this world. After 93 years, almost 94, of bringing joy and love to everybody she knew. Her memory will certainly be a blessing. And the truth that she lived by, the joy and the love that I know she brought to all of you, the way that she made you feel when she was with you, that will remain with you for many, many years to come. So I want to invite us, because we're not having multiple speakers today because of COVID safety, and because I didn't in life have the opportunity to know her. Yet I feel so blessed that last night at 10:30 at night, I got to hear these stories and got to get a glimpse into her life. And I feel like I knew her. I feel like I understand who she was. I hope I do. But I want to invite all of us to just take a moment and think about one memory that you have of Beverly. think about that memory, feel her presence with you in this moment. And we will hold that as we continue with our ceremony. So it's traditional to read various psalms at funerals, and this one has become a real tradition, Psalm 23, which talks about God, godliness, goodness in this world as something that we can trust on and rely. And I think the reason that we say this, that we say this psalm, is because it reminds us that even when we're sad, that there will be happy days again. And this brings us back to Beverly, who lived with such resilience, right? She had sad days in her life, certainly very deeply grieving sad days, but they brought her back up. She was able to cling onto her relationships, and those helped her. So whether we think of this language as God helping us or the people around us helping us, we're reminded that we have something to lean on, and that we will continue to have good days and good memories and good family celebrations for many years to come. Psalm of David, Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God, make me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. God restores my soul. God guides me in straight paths for God's name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of goodness and godliness. So we will now lower Beverly's casket. And as we do this, I'll be reciting some traditional words that are said as this is happening. And then we'll have the opportunity to put earth on her casket. I like to think about this as the way we cover up somebody who we love when they're going to sleep at night, right? Those of you who have children, right? When we put our children to bed, we tuck them in. And so too, we tuck Beverly in. We put a little bit of earth on her casket to say that we are with her. It's a sign of our connection to her. And I'll speak more about that after. So the tradition tells us that we do this in a unique way. So we take the shovel and we first use it backwards, slowing us down and reminding us that this experience of putting earth on this casket is unique and different from any other experience that we might have with a shovel, right? This is a different experience. This is a sacred experience. This is a holy experience. So we have it upside down. And then we do 2 more shovels with it right side up, filling the shovel. Why do we do 3? We do 3 because we're told that a threefold cord is not easily broken, and your connection to Beverly will not be broken. So in putting 3 scoops of earth, you are solidifying that connection. There's also a tradition of not passing the shovel on, putting it back into the earth when you're done. And that enables us to not pass on our break. So I'm going to invite Dennis and Barbara to start. And then I'm going to actually invite them to sort of move to the side so they're not close to others. And then we'll have others come. We're going to cover the casket and then we'll say the memorial prayer in mourner's Kaddish.
You come from both sides, folks?
Why don't